on Business Incorporated today. Kenya tea export to Afghanistan drops. Nigeria's oil company posts first profits in 44 years, considers IPO. Libya's oil company halts activities due to funds shortage. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Imi John Mekwa. Well, let's start off as usual with the market. Starting on the African continent, major markets that we track were positive at intraday. Starting with Nigeria, Nigeria's oil share index was marginally up 0.03%, almost the same as South Africa's GSE, which was also up 0.32%. Egypt was much higher at 0.55%, and Kenya closed Thursday's trading positive. It was up 0.10%. Well, it was a flip side on the Middle East now. Major markets closed yesterday, that was Thursday, in the negative. Abu Dhabi shed 0.52%, while Dubai lost marginally, 0.09%. In another part of the region, Saudi Arabia lost 0.25% and was closely followed with 0.29% by Qatar. Over to Europe now. Markets were muted on Friday as caution prevailed ahead of U.S. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's remarks on the annual Jackson Hole Symposium. Well, we have more coming from that region with Chelsea, who is in Frankfurt, to give us updates. Hello, Chelsea. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, all eyes are on the U.S. now. Jackson Hole Conference. And a speech later about 3 p.m. Nigerian time. Ahead of that, what are investors expecting?
So this is going to be a really crucial meeting, and what Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, says could really define where markets go in the months ahead. Jerome Powell is expected to basically not give a lot of signals on where monetary policy is going because the U.S. is facing a very difficult economic situation right now. On the one hand, the economy has, to a large degree, recovered from the pandemic, but there's still a lot of concerns, particularly right now over the Delta variant. Cases are rising at their highest level since January. We're hearing more and more reports of hospital systems becoming overloaded, especially in unvaccinated areas, and all of this is a major threat to the economic recovery in the U.S. if states and counties have to start reimposing restrictions. So Jerome Powell is going to have to balance the uncertainty over the coronavirus with the current recovery of the economy and particularly the resurgence in inflation. So most investors right now are expecting him to not give a lot of signals today, but to potentially signal that there could be some more information coming next month at the September meeting. All in all, investors are still expecting the U.S. to start pulling back on this monetary accommodation at some point this year, but that all is becoming more uncertain because of the Delta variant.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see the outcome of that. We'll see the impact of it in the markets by Monday, because that should be later on today. Well, Apple announced changes to its App Store to settle a class action suit in the United States. What will these changes mean for EU's investigation into Apple?
So basically what Apple is doing now is they're going to make it easier for app developers to avoid Apple's payment system. And this has become a major flashpoint for Apple and its relationship with developers, because app developers, particularly, we've heard this from Spotify, the music streaming app, as well as the maker of Fortnite, Epic Games, that Apple doesn't give them any options, that they have to use Apple's in-store payment system, and that every time they do, do, they have to pay a 30% commission. So they say that this really restricts their ability to be competitive. This is not just an argument that we've heard in the U.S., it's also the heart of several investigations here in Europe and in other countries like the UK and Australia. So Apple's moves to make it easier for developers to use outside payment systems, they likely will appease EU regulators to some degree, but there's still a lot of other regulatory questions here in Europe and around the world that Apple is facing, for example, over its Apple Pay system, as well as its ebook business. So even if this does lead to the question over App Store payments being settled, it doesn't mean the end of Apple's regulatory problems.
All right, so Deutsche Bank asset management arm, DWS, has been hit with claims that it overstated sustainability of its investments. What more can you tell us about this?
So these are allegations that are coming from the former head of sustainability at DWS. She says that DWS has basically misled investors about how sustainable their investments actually are. So sustainable investing has exploded in the past couple of years. It's become a huge market, one of the hottest out there, and every asset manager is trying to get a foothold in that market. DWS has said that sustainability is at the heart of everything they do, but this whistleblower is saying that it's not actually that true. The DWS says that more than half of their assets are invested in a sustainable way. This whistleblower says it's a much lower percentage. So the U.S. and Germany are both investigating these claims of misleading investors, but this is likely to really be a big moment for the sustainable investing market because there still aren't unified global rules and regulations about what constitutes a sustainable investment. This has led to a lot of greenwashing and a lot of asset managers labeling things as green or sustainable that actually aren't. So this case with DWS, it's really the first to look at this from a regulator's angle, and it certainly could set the stage for more and more criticism and more investigations into the sustainable investing market.
All right, thank you so much, Chelsea, and enjoy your weekend. So let's cross over to the United Kingdom now, where we have Juliana joining us from our London studios. Hello, Juliana. Good afternoon.
Hey.
So British Airways is planning to replace its short-haul operation at Gatwick Airport with a new cost business. What are the details of this?
Yeah, this is a really interesting story, pretty timely as well, because the government's furlough scheme, so the subsidy scheme where the government have basically been paying people to stay at home, it's coming to an end. It's coming to an end next month, and the vast majority of British Airways staff who were stationed at Gatwick are still on furlough, and bosses are really trying to scratch their heads to figure out how they can make the Sussex airport profitable and scalable, and a discussion of a kind of budget short-haul airline has been on the cards for some time now, but as we know, with so many other parts of the economic sector, the pandemic has accelerated plans, and thus BA Express or BA Light, which are a couple of the names that are doing the rounds, is going to be born. Operations are expected to start in spring 2022, so just in time for the Easter holidays. And this new BA budget airline is to be a rival to EasyJet, Wizz Air and Ryanair, who have really dominated the short-haul budget flight sector, particularly in Gatwick, which has predominantly been closed for BA operations since March 2020. So it's all up in the air at the moment in terms of name, but we do know that it is going to start next year, and this is come as much like relief for the thousands of BA staff that are on furlough that are hoping to get their jobs back, and it seems like this news does signal that there is a future for them.
Yeah, and well, a lot of eyes on the US respecting the Powell's speech. What's going on in the market? What data you have for us as we wait for that speech, which is later on today?
Yeah, as you said, Jerome Powell is going to be giving his symposium in Wyoming. Yes, it's very important. I think Chelsea's gone through most of the details there. All eyes and ears are watching and waiting and really kind of looking for any clues to suggest whether the Federal Reserve will start tapering back their asset purchasing, which I believe at the moment sits at about $120 billion. So it's a lot of money. The economy does appear to be stabilising. So perhaps there could be a move today, though I don't think anybody really is anticipating that. But the FTSE not doing very well at intraday. It was in the red in the morning. The all shares still remains in the red at intraday. It's down 0.01%. The FTSE 100 also down by 0.05%. The FTSE 250, the domestic market, that's up slightly by 0.14%. In the currencies market, the British pound up against the US dollar by 0.05%, also up on the euro by 0.01%, and at intraday, the British pound is up on the Japanese yen by 0.08%.
And what data are we looking out for next week?
Pretty quiet week next week, Innie. It's a long weekend. It's a bank holiday Monday, so no market data for you, I'm afraid, on Monday. But next week we are going to get the final Purchasing Managers Index data. This is really significant. It gives us a bird's eye view on what's happening in the private sector in Britain. Flash data suggests that it's not doing too well in August. Growth is slowing. Economists are still anticipating that GDP growth by the end of the year in the UK could be about 7%. But so far, all indicators does show that Q3 growth isn't as sharp as what we were seeing in Q2. But we'll get a final taste of that next week.
All right, we'll certainly wait till next week. It's not long away. But enjoy your weekend, Juliana. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks.
So let's move to Asia now, where Asia-Pacific markets traded mixed on Friday as investors remain cautious ahead of Federal Reserve's annual Jackson Hole Symposium, where Fed Chair Jerome Powell is due to speak. In Australia, the benchmark AX 200 closed fractionally lower at 7,488.30. The heavily weighted financial sub-index rose 0.25%, while the energy sector was flat and materials fell 0.45%. The Nikkei 225 in Japan fell 0.36% to 27,641.14, while the Topix index declined 0.34% to 1,928.77. South Korea's Kospi rose 0.17% to 3,133.90, and the Hang Seng index in Hong Kong was down 0.18% in late afternoon trade. Chinese mainland shares also rose. The Shanghai Composite advanced 0.59%, while the Shenzhen Component added 0.15%. The highly anticipated Jackson Hole Symposium from the Fed will be held later on today. Investors are expecting to hear what Powell thinks about the state of the U.S. economy and how he might guide the central bank's exit from the measures it took to rescue the economy from the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, with the situation in Afghanistan, far away in Kenya, a major export is tea, and one of their major destinations is Afghanistan. How is this affecting exports of Kenya? How is it affecting the economy? We have joining us now microeconomist Vinita Koteda. She's a microeconomist with EFG Herman's Research, joining us all the way from Kenya. Hello, Vinita. Good to speak with you.
Hi, how are you?
Great, and you? So,
Good, thanks.
what's the situation now? I mean, there was a bomb blast yesterday around the airport, and now there's another one today. How has that affected the exports of tea from Kenya to Afghanistan?
Surprisingly enough, tea exports to Afghanistan so far have not been affected, as advised by our tea association. This is because the channel in which the exports are carried through to Afghanistan is the Pakistan border, and that still remains open for most goods to be transported. But we do foresee that in the coming months, if stability of the government is not reinstated, if the crisis carries on for the next couple of months, we're likely to see that tea exports could get affected quite significantly. So Afghanistan is quite a big player when it comes to Kenyan tea exports. They basically account for about 2%. They accounted for about 2% of total tea exports from Kenya. And it was about, I would say, 20 million. It was equivalent to about 20 million US dollars. So it's just quite a significant chunk of trade for Kenya, and we're likely to see that, if there are any issues with the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, the tea exports could decline. We've already seen that between 2014 and now, tea exports to the country have already dropped because of the fact that the U.S. as well as U.S.'s allies have been now sort of receding away, and they've been pulling out their troops. So as a result of that, we've already seen that tea exports to the country have declined. In 2014, the tea exports were almost about 140 million US dollars, and now they're down to about 20. In 2020, they were down to about 20 million US dollars. So we've already seen an impact on trade, and if the situation continues, we're likely to see more of a decline.
All right. Well, we wonder how it will go, but we do hope. I wish Kenya the very best in the midst of all of this. Well, thank you so much, Vinita Kotedia, Associate Analyst and Microeconomist with EFG Hermans Research, and do enjoy your weekend. We'll take a break now. When we come back from the break, we'll give you more stories, we'll say, from the African continents. To stay with us. It's Business Incorporated on Channel Television. You're welcome back. You're still watching Business Incorporated on Channels Television. Well, let's go to Zambia now. The International Monetary Fund wants Zambia to implement agreed policies before resuming talks on a long-awaited economic program that has held up debt restructuring talks with external creditors. An IMF bailout will be crucial for Zambia before it can reach a restructuring agreement with the holders of as much as $12.74 billion in external public debt. Well, what are the prospects for the IMF bailout package under the new government? Remember, they just had election just a couple of weeks ago. Well, we have Isaac Nwai-Popo, the Executive Director, Center for Trade Policy and Development, joining us from Zambia to share this. Good to have you, Isaac. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, so what does this new administration have to do to fast-track the process of securing this bailout fund?
Well, the first process would basically be engaging the International Monetary Fund and clearly spelling out in terms of their key priorities in getting the economy back on track. And they'll probably have to also spell out, if at all, they'll adopt some of the policy documents that had been developed by the outgoing regime. Key among these documents includes the recently launched economic recovery plan. But besides that, also it's a pledge that they need to make in terms of other policies that they'll put in place to ensure that they enhance prudence in the management of public resources and be in a position to adhere to what they'll end up agreeing with the International Monetary Fund.
What is the feel around in Zambia with the new administration now? Is there a light of a new hope? You know, the people have new trust in the government. What's it like now in Zambia?
Well, there's a lot of high expectations from citizens. If you look at the way a number of things were happening in the country in the previous regime, it had led to increased uncertainty in terms of the direction that the country was taking. Examples would include the rate at which the cost of living was rising. There are also serious concerns with high unemployment rates, but there are also big concerns with the direction that the economy was taking in terms of economic growth. Other than that, there were also big concerns related to public debt itself, which was affecting our ability to deploy resources into strategic sectors that would have helped us to post positive economic growth.
All right, Isaac, we
but
just
now
have to
the
leave it.
situation is quite different.
Okay.
Now the situation is quite different following the inauguration, the victory of the opposition political party has inspired renewed hope among the citizens. The expectations remain quite high. How the expectations will be met remains to be seen, and key among the processes that would help to confirm some of the expectations that citizens have is the upcoming national budget, which is to be presented when Parliament resumes. Effective 10th of September, our Parliament will start convening, and later on the new Minister of Finance, who was just sworn in today, will be expected to appear before the House and deliver his proposed budget for 2022.
All right, Isaac, thank you so much for joining us. We do wish you Zambians the very best. And of course, we'll be following the story to see how the new administration takes it up. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you so much.
So in Nigeria, the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation has posted a profit for the first time in 44 years, according to a statement by the president, who is also the Minister of Petroleum. The NNPC made a profit of 287 billion naira in 2020, following losses of 1.7 and 803 billion naira in 2019 and 2018. Meanwhile, the Nigerian oil giant is considering an initial public offering after posting its first profit, but no definite date has been set yet for the proposed IPO. And still talking oil, but moving now to Libya, the Arabian Gulf Oil Company is unable to continue its activity and carry out its work because it does not have the necessary funds. The company has been conducting business without access to budgets of 2020 and 2021, despite repeated promises from the government. This led to accumulation of debts and obligations and an inability to provide the necessary spare parts, equipment, operating and production requirements, and to pay its workers. Well, seeing that all eyes are on the United States now, we'll end the show with what happened in the market in the United States yesterday. But first of all, stock features. Well, still looking up to the Fed's Jackson Hole Symposium. Stock features rose early today, Friday, ahead of the Federal Reserve's annual Jackson Hole Symposium, which investors are looking forward to for more details into the central bank's plan to taper monetary stimulus. But we have our correspondent, Maria Bird, in the United States to tell us how the market ended yesterday.
U.S. equities fell Thursday as markets turned cautious after explosions in Afghanistan and ahead of a Federal Reserve gathering that may provide more clues about its approach to paring stimulus. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 slid as U.S. and civilian casualties were reported from blasts outside the Kabul airport, escalating tensions as the U.S. evacuates the area. The S&P 500 fell 0.6% as of the close on Thursday. The NASDAQ 100 fell 0.6%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.5%. The MSCI World Index fell 0.5%. The decline came after non-voting members of the Federal Open Market Committee also made hawkish monetary comments, urging the Fed to start tapering its asset purchase program. Energy shares led the decline as crude oil fell. Treasuries were little changed and the dollar rose.
Well, that's it from the U.S. We'll say thank you so much for joining us on this week's episodes of Business Incorporated. Let's meet again next week. But do enjoy your weekend. I'm Ini John Mekwa.